Amir Shevat,
How are
how are
you?
you doing? Our very first session.
Yes, indeed. I see you chose a nice background of the Bay Area.
Where are you? Are you in NASA or Star Trek? No, Star Trek.
Star Trek. It's the first series. Da, na, 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 na.
All right,
Yes.
Amir, what are you? Are you an entrepreneur, a product manager, an engineer? I can't even follow anymore.
So I'm an engineer by trade. Now I do more product. Basically, I've done about 15 years in corporate companies, building developer platforms and working with developers on developer platforms. And now I've retired to the startup life and do investments, and I also co-found a startup.
So you retired to the startup life. Okay, I like that.
Yes, whoever told you the startup life is the hardest haven't been VP in big companies. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Okay, so now when you say big companies, I mean, if you're talking about Google, Microsoft, Slack, Twitch.
Yes, yeah. I started a few startups, sold one, crashed another two,
Yeah.
then moved to Microsoft to work on SharePoint and on WPF with developers. Then went to Google, actually working with your father on launching
Woohoo.
a campus there. And then was asked to move to the States to manage Google's startup program out of developer relations. That was a lot of fun. At the end of my time at Google, I managed all of the developer outreach programs. So Google developer groups, developer experts, women in technology, and the startup program. And then I joined a small startup again called Slack.
Tiny.
And yeah, we were 90 people at the time.
So you were
And
tiny. Okay.
yeah, we were kind of small. I remember a full floor empty, and they said, "Yeah, one day we'll fill this entire floor." And we're like, "Yeah, right, never gonna happen." Um, and we had 50 developers when we launched the platform, and 2.5 years later, we had 250,000 developers, and the company was 2,000. So that was insane. And then 2.5 years later, Amazon has reached out to me and asked me to join a company that they've acquired called Twitch. And I was the VP of the platform, the API platform there. And a year ago, I've basically retired to the startup life. So enjoying myself, made a few angel investments, and co-founded Reshuffle.
Wonderful. Okay, so how many years are you? Would you say you're very deep into tech and products and consumers?
Oh wow. I would say 99. So that's 21 years.
21
Uh,
years. Okay, so give me like your 2 cents after 21 years. I mean every kid on the block does a startup and tries to revolutionize healthcare and payments and whatever. And I mean, how do you not develop some sort of cynicism after 21 years to all these different initiatives? How do you remain excited?
because you see success, right? Think of when people try to fly. For a very long time, people thought and dreamt of flying, but we didn't see any success for a very long time. If we were to say, okay, man can't fly, that's it, we wouldn't be having the things experiences that we have not today because nobody can fly, but in general. So it's very different in the tech world where you see success and you see success happening very fast. So I think we're in a unique moment in history where the moment from ideation into success is amazing. So I've thought about a night project a month ago about something, and now I'm going to launch it very soon around like COVID and helping people do things around that. So you can easily move from ideation to implementation, and that's amazing. That means that you can lower your cynicism, because cynicism is a tool that helps you judge whether an idea is good or not. But once you have this rapid development, you don't need to judge. You can see for yourself, right? So if I hear something that it's a bad idea, I don't necessarily want to tell the people that it's a bad idea, because they might need to learn, or I might be wrong. So I remove judgment, and it's a much better way, because reality is the best judge of everything.
Right. So I mean, you've been. It's very rare when somebody gets to go through, so many of the huge companies that anybody would dream to work at one day, and you have the privilege of seeing internally how so many of them operate. Do they operate the same way? I mean, when you're talking about 100,000 people, employees, you would imagine that they would sort of converge to the same best practices. No?
So there are things that are similar. For example, Facebook and Google are very similar in their hiring process. Promotion is done in a very similar way between Facebook and Amazon. But every company has a very, very unique aspect that makes its DNA very different. So, for example, at Google, promotions are done by committee. So I used to work in one of those committees, and you go and you get 12 packets. It's like a book that tells you why this person needs to be promoted. And you have a discussion for a few hours to talk about whether a person needs to be promoted or not. And it's not promoted by your manager, it's promoted by your peers. So it's a very unique way to get promoted. At Amazon, decision-making is very, very unique. You don't need to get everybody's approval. You only need to get one person's approval. So the company optimizes for rapid decision-making and rapid execution.
Interesting.
It is okay if somebody else is building something similar to what you're building, because competition is okay at Amazon. So in different, of course, Facebook is famous for move fast and break things, which is very, very different than Google, which is don't break it. Right?
Yeah,
so,
I think even Mark changed it a few years ago when he realized that it's a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also, if you want, another interesting thing that is different between companies is who's the strong organization in the company. So at Google, engineering is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So when I wanted to change something in Gmail because it didn't look the way I wanted it, I had to go and find the engineer who's working on the projects.
Wow.
At Slack, for example, designers are very strong. So everything needs to go through design and look amazing and feel amazing.
Interesting.
So in different companies, there's different focuses on who's making the decisions.
Okay, so Amir, let's play a game. Let's fast forward 4 years into the future, and Reshuffle is a 1,000-person company.
Which type of future do you see? Is this the future that you're seeing, or is this the future that you're seeing?
Well, I'll let you decide on that. So, how does Reshuffle look with 1,000 people? I mean, what are some of the most crucial items that you take and you forego?
So I think the most important thing that you need to do is solidify the DNA of your company. What does it mean to be, and it's usually good entrepreneurs start by writing the principles of their company. What are the core principles, and how can you keep the DNA of the company growing? For example, at Slack, we were doubling our size for a certain duration every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, we hired the amount of people working in the company at the time, which is insane. So how do you keep the new people to have the same experience and same virtues that you want to keep in the company?
Right.
So we were working with them and training them and making sure that they know and understand what does it mean to work at Slack. What does it mean, for example, empathy to your customers? So knowing that when a customer complains about something, you never say, no, it's not a problem, or we'll never fix it. You'll need to say, hey, it's broken and I'm sorry, and we'll work on it until it's better.
Right.
So things like that are super important. So what I hope to have Reshuffle be is an amazing place to work at. a place where people can collaborate, can be creative, can feel empowered. So every time I think about a company and how it is successful, I think about what are the core tenets that I want for these companies. And you can't start too early. So I've just worked with an entrepreneur. She's ex Facebook, and she's now, before she's even raising money, she's writing the core principles of her company.
But obviously that changes, right? Your principles change over time. You're just like you can pivot your product, you can
Yeah,
pivot your mission and your core values.
yeah, that's true. For example, Amazon has done a review of their core values. Every couple of years, they do a review of their core values and they modify and change them. And if you look at what they've done about 5 years ago, is add innovation. Because for them, until that point, innovation was given because they were the innovators in the company. But what they've seen is that innovation was going down because they were like it wasn't their bread and butter anymore. So they added that into the mix of changing the company. So yes, a company needs to have a different DNA as it goes, as it grows.
So now you're an entrepreneur and you're an investor at the same time. So most of the day you wear the hat of head of product at a small startup.
Yeah.
Obviously, and especially with everything that's going on in the world now, which is especially crazy for startups, I can't even imagine, and I'd love to hear about that too. But at the same time, then you're putting on your hat and you're saying, okay, now I'm going to invest my money in people like me who are also trying to make it. Do you need to have sort of a double personality for that? How do you differentiate between these roles?
Yeah, it's pretty hard because as a founder, you need to have a lot of excitement,
Yeah.
and as an investor, you need to have a little bit of skepticism, and you need to have different personas, I guess. What I found is that you need to develop a certain thesis in order to at least to start to think about investment. And the thesis that I had is how can I find founders that I know would be able to execute well? Because I'm investing in a very, very early stage. And I know the company that I'm investing in will not be the company that will grow at the end because people pivot and people change and companies change. And my company, Reshuffle, has pivoted a few times. But what I'm looking for is like, can this entrepreneur handle change? Can they see that that the reality has changed? Can they see that their product has not reached a certain product market fit and know what to do in order to change it? So I'm more of investing in people rather than companies. And I think when you're founding a company, when you're a founder or CPO,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically the same because you're investing in the people. You're making a leap of faith because at the end of the day, your startup is nothing without awesome people that make it awesome. So it's basically the same type of investment, only here I'm putting my money and here I'm putting something even more valuable when my startup, which is my time. One thing that people don't realize is that opening a startup is a 7-year deal. People think it's, yeah, I'm going to make money and then I move. If you're a founder, you're there for between 5 and 7 years until you're successful. So you need to make sure that the people around you are amazing and that you really like to work with them.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Do you often see that you're almost looking for yourself in the founders and you're trying to look for people that have that and you're comparing your own passion to theirs because you're going through the same process at the same time?
No, I'm looking for people who are much better than me. I, I think that I always try to find people who are much better than me. When I was hiring for my team at Slack, um, I was developer relations number one, and I tried to fire myself from each of my capabilities. So the first person I found was a much better technical writer, and the next person I found was much better at uh, working on partnerships. I do not want to find people who are at my level. I want to raise the bar. I want to be the most stupid person in the room of my portfolio.
Interesting. So product management, you've done it quite a bit across the board. What are some of the pitfalls Where do people go wrong? But you know, the weirdest things that just people don't understand.
The most common thing is called the ivory tower syndrome, which is you sit in your freaking ivory tower and you say, this will be what's good for the masses. Users will do this. Users will love that. And you're like, you're stuck there and you're totally disconnected from your actual audience, which usually doesn't even care about your thoughts,
Yeah.
right? The most common the most common problem that entrepreneurs and product managers hit is indifference. People see the product, they don't understand, they don't care, they move on. And then the founder or the product manager is like, but I built all this and you wanted it. And so being humble is the most important thing. You need to have empathy for your customers. You need to understand and love your customers. And you need to know exactly what is their needs. And then you need to validate all your assumptions, because 90% of your assumptions are wrong unless you're Steve Jobs. And even Steve Jobs had multiple products that fail. There was Apple ads. There was like, if you look at you can find in Google the list of products that Steve Jobs started that were a total failure.
Yeah.
And it's very insightful because even a person who we all recognize as a great product leader had multiple assumptions that were wrong. So the most common pitfall for a PM is to have strong opinions that are strongly held. You have to have strong opinions that are weakly held, saying, hey, this is my thesis on my product, but I'm willing and love to be proven wrong, because then I can change my thought process and make my product better.
Okay, so another thought game. One of the things that I want to do is I want to build something in a developing area and try to create a meaningful technological product that improves people's lives. Now, let's say I'm trying to solve the problem of the lack of good water for drinking, purifying water. I don't have a water problem. I mean, I can go and drink here from the sink. What can I do as a product manager or as a CEO so that I can empathize with people that I'm building the product to, that I'm don't necessarily am going to be a user myself, which I'm guessing is most of the case.
That's a great question. Very common Silicon Valley problem, right?
Yeah.
Because in the Silicon Valley, luckily, we have a lot of like amenities and like life here is good.
Yeah, you're in a freaking spaceship right now.
People complain that their Amazon shipment was late by 20 minutes, right? That's the biggest problem. But if you look at companies that have done radical things around building empathy to their customers, they were very successful in those endeavors. So, for example, Facebook has shipped their entire team. I don't remember if it was to India, their mobile team, either to India or to Africa, to build their mobile app there. Because they said, like,
wow,
if you're on 4G, that's not a problem to have a very rich mobile app. But try to build a mobile app for the developed countries while you're not in a low bandwidth, when there's no bandwidth sometimes, when you have very spotty connections. So I would say if you're trying to build something for developed countries when there's water shortage, spend time there, like actually feel and be there. The other thing is interviews. People don't do enough interviews. Again, another big product problem.
Yeah.
I would say that as a rule of thumb, you need to interview your different types of customers at least once a week. I meet with my customers, different customers, all the time, at least once a week.
Even after you think you have the solution and you know what you need to do?
All the time. My SVP at Twitch said that I have to find an advisor streamer. Somebody whose job it is to use Twitch, and they need to be my right wingman.
Interesting.
And I found someone, and they were so helpful in thinking through the product, because the way I was thinking about the product was very different than the way they were thinking about the product.
Wow. Amir, you need to go back to running a company, but before we go, 3 words that describe you.
3 words that describe me. Wow. Bald, I guess. Bold, bald, and
Product manager.
Risk lover. I guess it's 2 words.
I'll take it. I'll take risk lover.
I totally fail in this test.
Amir, thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Stay safe and healthy.